Welcome to Conversations with Changemakers. I'm Elizabeth Filippouli, the founder of Global Thinkers Forum, an international non-profit organization that promotes accountability in leadership. Over the years, we have built a diverse network of social impact thought leaders with whom we share a common vision to promote values-based leadership. The forum was incubated at Oxford University's Said Business School in 2011. And in these series, we interview change makers from different parts of the world because we want to hear how they are going through this coronavirus crisis as professionals and as individuals. And we invite them to share insights and forecasting for the day after. Today, I'm interviewing Charles Depasse. Charles is from Belgium and has a long and established career in the human resources sector. He is also a mentor in our mentoring programs for women and youth, Athena and Telemachus. Charles's key strength is dealing with complex situations arising from organizational restructuring and post-merger integration. Charles, welcome to Conversations with Changemakers.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure to be talking to you this morning.
If ever we were talking about complex situations, I think this is now. And this is not arising from organizational restructuring, but it is something that has been created from the recent developments triggered by a virus. And so my take is that it is a very uncertain period of time for absolutely every professional, from the younger one to the senior one. And I would welcome your insights here because you have this very long career in the human resources sector and you have dealt with, again, very complicated situations. What is your current perception of what is going on and how this is affecting human resources and professionals?
Yes, we have a situation today that has changed the framework in which we normally work. We have a lot of people who are facing a situation where all of a sudden they are out of a job, where they have been asked to work from home in some cases, where they have lost the day-to-day contact with their co-workers. And this creates a lot of uncertainty. And it creates a lot of expectations on what do I do with myself, what do I do with my close associates, and also what do I do with my own life now that everything has been thrown in the air because of this coronavirus.
What I hear a lot from colleagues that we've been working with for years is that they feel as if they will have to adjust their expertise or their area of focus. Because now what we see through this COVID-19 happening, there are two emerging trends. I mean, there are many, but I'm going to refer to two main ones which touch on human resources. One is that we see a lot of remote working. Currently, with the lockdown measures being implemented in most countries, people are working from home. That is one trend. And I would like to invite your insights as to whether you see it becoming the norm or a new norm. And then the other emerging trend is that people will have to revisit the way they position themselves as professionals in an era that now will prioritize such crisis, because it's something that hit us very, very hard. It was unexpected, unforeseen, and the consequences are huge. What is your take in, across both these areas?
Yes, I think working from home is a trend that is going to be increasing. There's no doubt about it. As you mentioned, I've worked for a number of years in large organizations, and I have been a classic executive in that sense, where I've been traveling enormously, and I was on a plane every other day, and that was the norm. I think that what we've seen is that with the new technologies, the Zoom or Team or other ways of doing conference calls and video calls, you can actually achieve an enormous amount of work without needing to travel, and do that with a number of people. You always were able to do conference calls, but now you can share the screen. Now you can have a much better interaction where the speaker is then automatically put on the video, as we all do. And I think a lot of business people in the future will limit their travel, and it will be much more accepted. You can ask yourself whether that's always going to be the case. No, I think that if you want to build a new relationship, if you want to grow your business, you will still need to travel and meet your customers. And there is a lot more to establishing a personal relationship than a video or a Zoom call. But nevertheless, once you've established that relationship, then you can maybe limit your travel, and instead of going every week, go every other week or every third week, and then substitute with a video call in between.
Do you think that new reality is going to affect small businesses? Because in locations where big companies have been, having their offices, their premises, you had and we have a big number of SMEs operating around that area. What is going to happen to these, and how are they going to be impacted, and how do you see that landscape changing or perhaps transferring to other areas? What is your take?
I think that's a very big difference. If you're a large company, you normally have financial means and a horizon that's much longer than a smaller company. That means that when everything goes well, you don't see the difference as much. But when you find yourself in a situation where very abruptly the revenues are stopped, a larger company will have a lot more inertia and ability to withstand that situation. And what we see, whether it's in the automotive or airline or any other industry, the suppliers, the small manufacturers, the smaller company, the SMEs, as you mentioned, are going to be impacted much quicker and much more, because they usually are delivering a single service or a single part of a larger unit. And so they don't have often the ability to have the diversity, the diversification that some larger organizations will have. So it will be, and it is already today, one of the responsibilities for those larger companies, the automotive companies in particular. One of the reasons why they are having to spend so much money is to continue to purchase some of the components from their smaller suppliers so that they can keep them alive. And if that doesn't happen, there's going to be a big risk that they're going to lose some of their critical suppliers going forward. And then on the other hand, we also have the help from the government. So the small enterprises are going to look at their large clients, large companies, and the government to help them through this crisis.
You are a mentor in one of the programs. I would like to ask you about mentorship, the importance of it, and why did you decide to become a mentor?
Absolutely. I was actually lucky that in about 10 years ago in Scandinavia, I was working for a company that decided to start an internal mentoring program. And they asked me to take the responsibility for that. It was new. It was human resources that had organized the program, the framework, and it was a great way to get familiar with this. It is, for an organization, actually, a way to build resilience. And now that we talk about the difficulties that we're facing with coronavirus, this is a very important element. You create resilience in an organization by sharing values, by sharing way of working. And what mentoring gives you in a company is it gives you privileged moments between junior employees and senior employees that have maybe been in a position of responsibility 10 or 15 years more. And you get access to these senior leaders. You can ask them questions. They become friends. You basically build trust. You have a safe environment in which you can ask the questions that you would otherwise not dare to ask in a larger group or to your manager. And that allows you to build and develop a collaborative network within the company. And you're absolutely right that it's been proven many times that you increase the retention of the employees in the company, you improve the morale, you share the values, and it goes both ways. A lot of the senior managers sometimes get isolated from the front line, from what's really happening at other levels in the company. And so it's a way for the senior leaders also to learn of what's happening in other parts of the organization that they don't see every day.
Another element which I wanted to visit with you, and I hear that a lot in conversations with female managers, is, especially junior ones, is the importance of sponsorship. So we have mentorship, which is great, and that is about self-development, building self-confidence, providing advice, providing wisdom. On the other hand, sponsorship is becoming an advocate for a junior manager. It is about standing up for them, requesting a raise for them. So I guess what I would like to highlight here is that mentoring and sponsoring a young manager has to go hand in hand.
You definitely want to see some of the minorities, the underrepresented groups, whether they're women, whether they're minorities, have a chance to put their case and be treated fairly. What we often see, unfortunately, is that there is a predominant culture within a company, and anyone who comes from a different background or a different angle will tend to be on the lighter side, if I can say that. It will not be taken so seriously. It will take longer to get ideas across, and so on and so forth. So I definitely support that it's very important for a company to identify the people who are otherwise on the lighter side of the organization and bring them into the fold and find ways for them to have their say and be treated fairly vis-a-vis others. And I think mentoring and sponsorships are ways of achieving that.
Do you think that now with the coronavirus crisis, mentoring should acquire a different perspective or a different focus?
Mentoring is really a chance, as you mentioned, to learn from someone who's had experience in a field of industry, in a certain level of responsibility, maybe also culturally, whether it's a company or a country or region. And my expectation is that what we're going to see now is that we're going to see that being extended to, for example, how can you have scientific mentorship? How can you learn from others how to use all your tools in a smarter and better way? I think I'm the first one to admit that I'm not very efficient when I use all my private personal computer, Zoom, all the electronic means that we have at our disposal. So definitely there's going to be a push. Now you see Google, all of these companies are developing incredible tools. And I think there could be a need for mentors who are people who are very knowledgeable in those areas to bring it to those who are not. Similarly, I think that the ability to converse, to convince using video calls, it's a different way of behaving than when you are in a traditional setting. So here again, we have a change, and every change is also an opportunity. So yes, I think this is going to be an opportunity to develop mentoring from its more classic themes that we talked about to the more modern one, to the future of our society.
What about resilience, which is something that we now have to learn the hard way? So we have no other option currently in order to survive and, of course, to thrive, other than to become resilient. How do you define resilience? What are the different facets of resilience? And if you think that it is important?
Absolutely. That is really the key value today, is how do you handle the situation that you're in? And I can make parallels with other large moments where you have changes in your personal life. As we discussed earlier, a lot of people are facing, for example, a situation where their jobs have just been put at risk. And there is a natural reaction to that, to blame it on the external world, to blame it on it's not fair, to put yourself in the shoes of a victim. And that's a very natural reaction that you need to be aware of. And there is a description of that called the Valley of Despair that describes the curve, which is the normal frustration, anger, even depression or hostility that you can have until the uncertainty and the doubt starts to diminish. And then you leave room for acceptance, hope for the future and a new beginning. And the key dimension for this is resilience. And what that means is, how can you use that negative opportunity to grow yourself and to come out of this situation stronger than you went in?
Charles, I would like to thank you for this conversation, which I have found most insightful.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And thank you for listening to the Global Thinkers Forum podcast, Conversations with Changemakers. Follow us on social media. We are at Global Thinkers F on Twitter, and you can email us on info@globalthinkersforum.org. We invite you to explore our work and join our incredible network of people who want to actively do something positive for our world. Keep safe, keep well.